Well, hello, good morning. We are here with Professor Bafi Sherif. He is from Nigerian University, although he is born in Sierra Leone. We are going to talk about issues concerning Africa's democracy and Africa in international relations. Good morning, Professor.
Yeah.
I would like to know what's your point of view regarding democracy, or specifically, what Africans think of democracy. Is there only one conception of democracy? Is democracy related to African roots?
Yeah, so talking about democracy in Africa, it has something to return back to the history. But the question is there any terminology in Africa culture called democracy or not? If the terminology is coming from Greek, not from Europe, because the Europeans, they try to take this word for their own benefits. But it has become now terminology that they are using in the world, worldwide, especially after the Cold War. Democracy has something to say in Africa, but it has already been criticized by many scholars. Some have said democracy is not well explained. Some of them, they usually say democracy is a failure in African culture because it hasn't any correlation between the culture and the meaning of democracy that we are hearing today. And because of this, some old people, they usually say democracy is immoral because they don't know the meaning. And probably the problem is related to the reality of Africa, where you are talking about different cultures, where you are talking about different ethnicities. These ethnicities, they usually call tribes, that I don't call tribes, I call nation in nation. Because, for example, in Nigeria, we have about 250 ethnic groups. All of them, they have their languages and culture in one nation. The country is about 150 people. So the question of people in Africa, they usually say what democracy can do with their problem, with their crisis, with their poverty, with education. These are the questions they usually ask. But those people are working for democracy in Africa. They usually say democracy is something that's living, is a living thing, just like how we are living. It's living because it's a concept that can do something with our states, with our country. Although it's an ideology, any ideology have interest. Those people are working for democracy. They have their own point of view. They have their own interest. But for the several years ago, democracy in Africa, it was really slowed down, especially in the 90s, because of the different coups d'etats, different violence that we got, like in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and even in Zaire, Congo, that we usually say, and what happened in Rwanda. All scholars, most of the scholars are asking themselves, where democracy were when all these things happened. But we were saying democracy is there because it's only the practice remain. If the democracy be practiced accurately, where there is freedom, where there is representation to the assembly, where there is voting, election, where there is correctly, so the democracy will be living in that time. But also now, for the time we are in the globalization system, Africa have to take democracy as also ideology like the others. They have to defend themselves. They have to restore peace in Africa, whether by the name of democracy at all is it, or by other name. These are the ones that we are looking now for Africa people. We are not only running behind the terminology, but we are running behind the practice. The time that you are saving the population from malnutrition, from sicknesses, you are giving them, providing them education, they are learning, whether it's democracy as a contemporary time in Africa or not, that's a democracy.
Yeah. So, Professor, if you see an ordinary man, if you meet an ordinary man, and you ask him about democracy in Africa, either in an African city or in the African rural areas, what would that person tell you or answer you if you say, what do you think about democracy?
Most of those in agricultural area, in the rural areas, they don't know anything about democracy by the name of democracy, because it's a foreign word in their own life. I asked one old man some years ago or 2 years ago in Niger Republic about democracy. I asked him, do you know anything about democracy? He said, I don't care to know about it. I said, why? He said, democracy hasn't anything to do with our life. And probably it will be immoral. I said, why? He said, because in democracy there is no respect between young and old. Some of them, they will say democracy is fabricated from foreign country that they wanted to plant in Africa. They usually say so. But the intellectuals, those are professionals, those are learners, they are the ones that they usually talk about democracy, and the politicians. Because the politicians, when they want to reach to their own point, when they want to reach to power, to get the leadership, they have something to say. Just like other years past, in most of the countries, they were talking about communism. They were talking about socialism, for example, in the past. In many countries, whether Algeria, whether in Benin, they were talking about this. Those leaders, they have their own interest between this ideology. It's the same thing today in the democratic world we are living. So most people, they don't know about it. And those people, they know it, probably they are the ones that they are working for their interest. You know.
But democracy, you talked about democracy in the sense of practice. Mm-hmm. So can I ask you, is democracy something related to African culture or not? I'm speaking about pre-independence periods.
Yes. Democracy, although its terminology are using today, but it has already been practiced in the world, not only in Africa. It has been practiced in family, in society. Because if we return back to different era in Africa, like Songhai, if we return to the time of Usman Dan Fodio in Nigeria, if we return back to the time of Mansa Musa in Mali, if we return to Kingdom of Ghana, I think democracy has already been practiced, whether consciously or not consciously. You know, it's only the meaning it will change time to time according to the needs. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have made reference to different countries. And this reminds me about one very important issue. That's we from Latin America, we think of Africa as a homogeneous country, not taking into account that Africa, we have different Africas in itself. Like in Latin America, that we cannot speak about one Latin America, but we have the Andean region, the Southern Cone, the Caribbean. Well, the same is with Africa. Could you enlighten us about these different Africas and how they think, how's the future, how you see the future for these different Africas?
Yeah, we have different Africas. These differences sometimes are fabricated along history. Because right now, we can say there is Africa Francophone and there is Africa Anglophone. All the countries were colonized by British. We usually call Africa Anglophone, like Sierra Leone, like Nigeria, Ghana, Gambia. All these countries we call Africa Anglophone. There is another Africa Francophone, like Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Niger, Benin, Chad. All these countries are Africa Francophone. Africa Anglophone, they are the ones that they are speaking English language, and the official language most of the time in their offices they are using English. And this Africa Francophone, they are using French most of the time. But we have some kind of relationship according to the culture that we have along the history. When you are coming from Burkina Faso to Ghana, you are going to see that there are kind of similarities in their culture, the way of living. And because of this, the boundary control, it has become a problem in Africa. It's very difficult to control the boundary because they are the same people. Just like you are seeing in Latin America, you see the similarities between this and this and this. So like that in Africa. But now, with the globalization system, with the challenges in front we are today, we are now thinking how we are going to determine our own way of life. And because of this, we are talking about ECOWAS. We have special monitoring organization in Africa. Even now we have special passports. They call ECOWAS passport. We have now that to help the citizens to pass the boundary. Because you will see half family here, half family here. So I think the self-determination or depend on oneself and try to survive for future and the present, this will be our plan in future in Africa.
So when you are speaking of ECOWAS, it's like we have in here in Mercosur. That's a common market in the Southern Cone, that we have a Mercosur passport also. This makes me arise one question. It seems that at the ECOWAS level, you have overpassed the national level, so that you have not a supranational, but an international level with ECOWAS, and then you have all the other ethnic disputes, small ethnic disputes, so that it seems that in the West African region, the national level state has some problems. Although you are working for a supranational level state, or you are dealing with the ethnic disputes, like in the case of all the recent conflicts in West Africa, has to do with ethnic disputes that are not really ethnic, but quest for power.
Yeah, yeah. And it will be very difficult to end the conflict and the confusion between the ethnics. Why? Because a long history, for a long time ago, these ethnics, they were there and they're existing. And it will be very difficult in any society to find a real solution for the conflict. Even those countries, they are pretending probably they don't have ethnic problem, but there is another confusion that they have. Probably they don't want to say about it. So Africa, they have a lot of ethnics. And they have already been existed, not only now. If the problem have already been there, I think it's going to be continued. But the only thing, we are finding all the solutions by the government and also by civil society organizations that we have to try to slow down the problem that we have. Because there is no society without problem. It's only when it comes too dangerous, when killing each other because of the leadership, where the danger is so much. But all the society, they have this problem. And we are still on the way. Probably time will come, the solution is going to be found by itself.
And within this society, what's the role of religion? In let's say in West Africa society.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of Islamic.
Yeah, the religion, as you know, in general, is a part of human feeling, human perspective, emotional, psychological. Not only in Africa, but even in Greek time, they have something to think about. During the prophetic time, Moses, Joseph, down to Prophet Muhammad, all these prophets, they were talking about religion. And the worship, it has become part of human being for a long time ago. So it took its dimension in Africa as a society, as a community, as a nation. So you know very well that Africa, they have Christianity, they have Islam, and they have no belief group they are living. So time will come, the confusion will happen between the groups, just like leadership management that you have in political system. You will see party is against another party. But there are transitional time, there won't be conflict. There are times the conflict will raise. And we usually ask ourselves, where the problem is coming? Where the problems are coming between the religious group? Are the politicians are behind this problem, or the problem are natural between them? Because if we return to 80s or 70s, sometimes we are going to see some solidarities between the Christians and the Muslims. I remember in 70s, we usually see the Christmas time, like in Sierra Leone and Liberia, Muslims and Christians are dancing together. They are eating together. We saw this. We don't find that this is against this. But the other time comes, like now recently that you are seeing, as how you said, whether in Nigeria or out of Nigeria, there are conflict between these groups. They are fighting each other. Our question, where these conflicts are rooted, is coming from the religion itself or not? Because reading Bible, reading Quran, if you know religious studies, you are going to find in Bible, whether New Testament or Old Testament, or in Quran, in different chapters, you are going to find the right of human being. You are going to find the peace. You are going to find conflict resolution. You are going to find diplomatic relations between other nations. These are the ones that we usually find in these books. But when coming out to practice, where the confusion is coming, where they are going to forget about solidarity between the religions and between the nation itself, where the killing is coming, I may ask myself, this problem is coming from the leadership? Is this problem is coming from economic crisis sometime? For example, when there is land, everybody is fighting for this land. You want to try to occupy the land for a special family or for a special community. They are going to interpret that by religious conflict. Because the time that if you are Christian or you are Muslim, you are going to support your brother, forget that land. Because it's a self-determination for your children and other children coming. So we usually say the problem is not deeply religion most of the time. Sometimes it's the poverty that push many groups to fight against each other. Or it's coming most of the time from what we call malinterpretation in French, as I usually call malinterpretation, the text. When somebody doesn't know how he can interpret the text, the religious text, or probably is working for special group or special organization for special benefits, is going to interpret the text by the way that is going to bring plans, some kind of conflict between the nation. But in my own feeling, if the texts are well interpreted, there won't be this conflict. If the texts are well interpreted between Bible and Quran, between the religious groups, well interpreted, all are coming in the same point. Because no one will like to be behind. Anyone want to live in this world. Muslims want to live in this world. Christians want to live in this world. And no Christian want to live in this world. I don't think that there is any God or there is any Allah. We cancel some group not to live. Everyone want to live. Everyone to be in peace. So the text should be well interpreted according to our living, so that the African people, by this way, they are going to live with their religion without any conflict.
And Professor, don't you think that the problem is the fundamentalisms? I mean, either in Christianity or in Islamic fundamentalism. The isms are the problem. Not the religions in itself. Not the relation between religions. But just if you take a religion to the extreme, like that lady in Nigeria who was buried and buried to death because she was violated, and so she had committed sin, and she was to be blamed. That's fundamentalism, I think. It's not religion.
It's not religion.
I mean, that's another thing.
According to my own reading, whether in Bible or in Quran, deeply in Muslim tradition, I found that the extremism most of the time is coming from no understanding of religion. Most of the time is coming from there. Or when somebody wants to work for his own interest, it's going to be dogma. Because the time the Bible is talking about peace and Quran is talking about peace, how somebody can be extremist as a Muslim or Christian is only because whether he did not understand well the text or he wants to interpret according to his own feeling according to his own ideology, to try to cancel, try to pull the others from the game. These are the things that we call as the extremism. Because the extremism is what? Is to say I'm only one. I'm only one that I'm supposed to be or to exist, and the others, they won't be exist, and they won't get any right.
So it's a question of power to a certain extent.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking about power and thinking about the ECOWAS and Nigeria, it is said that all the ECOWAS interventions to maintain peace were done by the Nigerians, who were the most important military force. Also, Nigeria is the biggest country in the region in terms of population, in terms of GNP.
Yes.
So my question is, does Nigeria or Nigerians want to be the leaders or the regional hegemons in the region?
Yes, probably. But what we have observed in the world today, the person that gives food to other person is always leader. When somebody is hungry and the other one is responsible for him, he will become as a leader. So if Nigeria, they try to help Liberia to find solution for Liberia problem down to Sierra Leone or even Guinea. So I think it was because Nigeria, they are the biggest in the area, and also in terms of the power that they have, or the population that they have, which of course the others, they don't have. And even recently I was informed that one Liberian is calling Nigeria as a big brother, as a big brother. So I think it was some kind of assistance given by Nigeria, because if you want to wait, let's get a group from all the country, probably it won't be. And that time it was harsh time that Nigeria is supposed to interfere, especially in Liberia, conflict, and Sierra Leone. They were not waiting at all as a brother to ask other people when they are coming and when they are being ready. Therefore, I think they did this kind of assistance to Liberia and Sierra Leone. But now, right now, I'm not seeing that this power is existing or going forward again in the region. Because recently, when I went to Sierra Leone or Liberia, I did not see Nigeria power again. I'm not seeing. Although Nigeria, they have brothers, sisters in Sierra Leone and Liberia, they are coming up to now. But this power, I did not see right now as how it was. I think it was only assistance that they give. But right now, the power is the power of ECOWAS.
But it's been said all around Africa, there is a certain leadership. They are fighting leaderships between Nigeria and South Africa in Africa.
Yes.
So that they deal along well, but at the same time, they take care of each other because each one wants to be the leader, not only in the region. I mean, Nigeria in ECOWAS and South Africa in Southern Africa, but the leaders in Africa. What do you think about this contradiction or this lover and hate relation?
It maybe exists. They are the one that they know. The leaders are the one that they know the secrets of this kind of fighting for leadership. But we as a civilian, we don't have nothing to say about their actions or the fighting. We are looking not only to say I want to be a leader but I want to see the practice in ground. What South Africa and Nigeria is going to do for Africa. If Nigeria is able to cover our needs in Africa, is a leader. If South Africa is able also to cover our needs from South Africa to West Africa, that's also a leader. The leadership is not only talk, but it's a practice in ground. For example, when the poverty and no education, people are living, we would like to find somebody who will find a solution. The time that we are going to see, not only South Africa, not only Nigeria, if Ghana is able to solve some problem of Africa, really clear in front of us, we are going to call it as a leader, not only South Africa and Nigeria. So these are the ones that we are waiting for.
Yeah, but the problem is that if you look backwards to the independence days,
yes,
in the 60s,
yes,
up to now, poverty has not been eradicated from Africa. Western investments have established in Africa, and they have taken also some part of African soul in terms of resources, and things have not changed that much.
yes.
So even when thinking of African Union, the African Union is much more of words than of deeds. So what are your forecasts for the next future for Africa, and how to eradicate poverty and hunger and diseases?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very good question. After independence of Africa, and also the impact of the colonialism, most of things are changed in Africa in terms of culture. This impact are also about the Cold War, that the post-Cold War, after the collapse of Soviet. These all situations you find in Africa very difficult. And we always say they have invested. The Europeans, they have invested in Africa, but we are not seeing anything. I think this all, the solution, as how you say, for the future, is only make Africa depend on themselves for their self-determination. Because when you depend on yourself, working hardly without firstly looking what is coming out, you are going to do something for yourself. The time that they are going to depend self-reliant, they are going to depend on themselves and return back to their agricultural work. Although they can cooperate, the cooperation is a natural way of human being. You can cooperate with the other, but they have to rely on themselves. In that time, we are going to find solution for future.
Yes, I really coincide with you. Thank you very much for your answer about African solutions for Africans. But also what I see from the outside is that there is a permanent contradiction. Because Africans want, and they pray, they fight for African solutions, but they also are very dependent on donors and on foreign aid. And so it's a contradiction, because they say, okay, I've grown up and I need to decide by myself, but they also say, I need your money. And thanks for the money you can give us in different forms.
Yes.
On the other hand, there is another contradiction. Africa has enormous, huge natural resources. Now the oil, the Guinea Gulf has as much oil in its soil and under the sea in the layers as Middle East. So you can imagine what this means for the scramble of Africa.
Yes.
I mean, so it's like a blessing. To have all these resources is like a blessing, and also it's a problem.
It's a problem, of course.
And also it's a problem of leaders that they behave double standard.
Yes, I remember when ITT, the president of Mali, he visited Tunisia one time during the conflict between the group in Liberia. He said that, and Sierra Leone, he said that we are lucky, like Mali, we are lucky. The students, they say, why? They say, because we don't have diamond and we don't have petrol, therefore we are not making conflict. So you make me remember about the book that's written by Carol Mayer, one American journalist, Into the House of Our Ancestor. He said that African resources are there, and they are cooperating with another partners. But what the partners are taking from Africa are more than the Africa are taking from partners. So Karome said in his book. So I was investigating, looking around the book, how I can understand how the partners are taking more than what Africa are taking from them. So I think Africa, just like the other nations, they can't be independent totally from cooperation, from taking from other people. You have to take, or you have to give. This is a natural thing.
Yes, and this takes me, or brings me to other issue that's very, very important for Africa and also for Latin America in these days. And it's quite a difficult issue to deal with. That's corruption. Because in this relation between those who give and those who take, corruption is in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
And what do you think about this problem?
The corruption. Last time it was an international conference that I attended recently in Niamey. One scholar said that the corruption is a culture of nations. Corruption is a culture for nations. All the nations are corrupted. So he said. He said you don't find no nation today is not corrupted. All of them, they are making corruption. It's only the degree of the corruption can be interpreted. When you be corrupted 90% or 80%, your corruption is going to be appear more than the person that is making corruption 2% or 3%. So, but the corruption, however it is not a good way for nation development, because it's kind of injustice in the society. You will see groups are making corruption and the others are not making corruption. So those are making corruption and they know the technique of the corruption. They are always the power people. They are always far from those that are not making corruption. So any development in country, if you want to go far, it's better to fight against corruption. These are the ones that in Nigeria, they put special office fighting against corruption. And today, most of the countries in the world, even in Africa country where we find this corruption, they are fighting against the corruption. But the corruption sometimes is too technique. The time you are saying there is no corruption, the corruption is existing most of the time. It's only the matter of time when people are going to be very cultivated and where the democracy is going to be applied, where the freedom, where human rights is going to be to apply very well, probably the corruption is going to reduce, not to eradicate totally. But because eradication of corruption, that means to change the structure totally of the government. And changing the structure of the government sometimes is not easy. These are the ones that I'm seeing in most of the countries. Yeah.
Well, we have discussed about democracy, about human rights, about religion, about corruption, about peace, conflicts in Africa. I think that this talk has improved very much our knowledge on Africa, here from Latin America, and well, I hope that through these exchanges and future academic exchanges, we in Latin America and you in Africa, we should know much each other, and we should begin new forms of South-South cooperation that would help to improve our insertion in the world. Thank you very much, Professor, and we hope your stay in our country and in our city is one of the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.